So the author of this post, who we'll call the original post, or OP, thought they were setting a perfectly ordinary boundary.
Right.
But the reaction from the family made it look like everyone else thought OP was still just available on demand.
Totally available.
Yeah, so it immediately raises the core question of this whole situation. Like, is OP being cold here, or did this family just get way too comfortable calling the shots?
It is, honestly, the ultimate collision of expectations.
Oh, absolutely.
You have an individual trying to assert their independence and, a family system that interprets that independence as a direct threat to its structure.
Right, and you listening can probably picture this exact scenario happening in your own life.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you decline an invitation with a simple, no, I can't make it, and suddenly that private, small disagreement escalates into a multi-paragraph group chat referendum.
Where everyone is just demanding a piece of your time.
Exactly. So today, we are looking at a massive viral Reddit thread from the r/AITAH community, who stands for Am I the Asshole?
A classic.
Yeah, and we are talking over 2,600 upvotes and hundreds of comments. They're all debating this messy clash between a graduation trip and a family visit.
And our mission today for this deep dive is to use this conflict as a map, basically.
Right.
To figure out exactly where family care ends and where family control actually begins.
But real quick, before we pull apart the timeline, we just need to establish the ground rules for what we are actually looking at.
Yeah, that's crucial.
We are not a court of law. We do not have, verified objective facts here.
We never do with these.
Right, we are looking at anonymous, user-generated content. Everything we discuss today is based strictly on what OP claims happened and how the commenters argue about it.
It's a fascinating case study of human behavior.
Totally. But we are analyzing OP's narrative, not some undeniable truth.
Exactly. So let's lay out that narrative, starting with the logistics.
Yes, the calendar is the whole mechanism driving this conflict.
Right, so according to the thread, OP and their husband had been planning a trip for months. Yeah, this wasn't some, spontaneous weekend getaway. It was an extended trip to visit OP's best friend for her graduation.
Which is a fixed institutional event.
Right.
That one detail alters the entire nature of the scheduling conflict.
It anchors the whole timeline. OP claims they had flights and dates totally locked in.
Yep, leading on the 14th of the month and not returning until the early morning of the 23rd.
So the plans are set in stone.
So then comes the complication.
Of course.
The in-laws, specifically the husband's mother's side of the family, planned a trip of their own.
Right.
According to OP, they're going to visit the husband's dad, the brothers, and the dad's wife.
Which, just looking at the surface there, you can see a really complex family architecture.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the mother-in-law organizing a trip that involves her side of the family visiting her ex-husband, essentially, and his new wife.
Right, the husband's father.
Yeah, so there are likely years of established loyalties, unspoken rules, and perhaps even underlying tensions built into that specific family dynamic.
Definitely. And the in-laws communicate that they want OP, the husband, and their kids to come visit during this time.
And here's the problem.
The overlap. According to OP, the in-laws visit lands right smack in the middle of OP's graduation trip.
Of course it does.
Right. OP claims they told the in-laws they couldn't make it, and initially, the in-laws were upset, but seemed to understand.
It seemed.
Yeah, OP completely understood why they were upset, and everyone apparently just moved on.
Well, the word seemed carries so much weight in family dynamics.
Oh, say more about that.
Often, what looks like acceptance is actually just a temporary retreat.
Wow, yeah.
The family system just regroups to figure out a different way to, extract the outcome they want.
And that regrouping definitely happened here. A couple of days later, OP claims the mother-in-law, the Mill, creates a group chat.
Just OP, the husband, and herself.
Right. And she proceeds to send, quote, several paragraphs about how upset she and her parents are that they can't see the kids.
Several in all caps.
All caps. And she begs OP to cancel the graduation trip altogether.
Or to reschedule it, just to be with her family.
Which transforms the situation entirely.
Right, from a logistical scheduling issue into this heavy, heavy emotional demand.
And the logistics of that demand are just baffling when you actually break them down.
Oh, they make no sense.
It's like booking a non-refundable flight to be the maid of honor at a wedding.
Right.
And then someone expects you to tear up the ticket because they randomly decided to host an impromptu potluck on the exact same weekend.
Right.
I mean, wait, OP is going to a graduation. A graduation does not move.
It does not.
The university does not care. about your family group chat? How does the mother-in-law even formulate the request to reschedule the graduation?
Well, that's the thing. When someone asks you to move an immovable event, they are no longer talking about the calendar.
What are they talking about?
They are testing the hierarchy.
Oh, wow.
They are asking you to absorb a massive illogical inconvenience just to prove that they occupy the absolute top spot in your life.
So it's not about the dates at all.
Not at all. The mother-in-law isn't trying to find a convenient date. She is demanding a demonstration of loyalty.
Okay, if the calendar isn't the real issue, then we really need to look at the unwritten rules operating underneath this family.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Because the source dossier highlights that this is fundamentally a boundary story.
100%.
The pro-OP perspective argues that OP is reacting to a long-standing pattern. A pattern where this family system just expects unrestricted access to OP's time, privacy, and their children.
Right, and the children are the ultimate emotional lever here.
Oh, they always are.
The grandparents want to see the kids, which is, a universally understood desire,
Sure.
which makes it a very powerful tool to induce guilt.
Yeah.
But the real test of whether a family system allows its members to be fully autonomous adults is how it responds to the word no.
Right. Because in a balanced relationship, if you decline an invitation, the other party might be disappointed, but they respect your autonomy.
Exactly. You say you can't make it, and they say, we'll miss you, let's plan for next month.
But here, the refusal was punished.
Severely.
It was met with a multi-paragraph essay designed to inflict guilt and demand compliance.
And psychologically, when a system punishes individuation, like when it treats your separate life as a literal betrayal, we refer to that as enmeshment.
Enmeshment, right.
In an enmeshed family, personal boundaries are viewed as an act of hostility.
Wow, an act of hostility.
Yeah, so the demand is no longer just a neutral request for your presence. It's an extraction of your time to soothe their anxiety about losing control.
We do need to look at the skeptical counterweight here, though.
That's true, we have to flip it around.
Right, because whenever you read a story like this, you have to wonder if the narrator chose the cleanest possible boundary for their post.
Oh, always. Reddit users frequently compress years of messy, nuanced family history into one highly dramatic incident.
Just to ensure the internet cites them.
Exactly. And that missing context is crucial.
What kind of context?
Well, the skeptical perspective asks us to consider what was left out of those paragraphs. Like, did OP actually communicate this graduation trip months ago?
Or did they only mention it when the in-laws announced their visit?
Right. Are there underlying health issues with the older generation, like the great-grandparents who want to see the kids, that might make this visit genuinely urgent?
Oh, that changes things. It is entirely possible the mother-in-law is operating out of genuine desperation or fear of running out of time with her aging parents, rather than some malicious desire to control OP.
It happens all the time.
But what's really fascinating is how both sides weaponize the concept of care in these conflicts.
Oh, definitely.
The in-laws call their demands family loyalty or duty, while OP calls her refusal self-protection.
Yeah.
But at what point does help freely given turn into help extracted by guilt?
The friction happens when care becomes coercive.
Coercive care.
Yes, help or presence freely given is care. But when an obligation like family duty is used to override someone else's previously stated reality, it shifts into control. The family is essentially saying, our desire to see you invalidates your prior commitments.
That is heavy. And when this story hit the internet, which, fun fact, the thread was actually created at Unix time, 1780-484676.
Which means it went up and immediately exploded.
Right. It quickly amassed almost 300 comments, creating this public jury.
A very opinionated jury.
And they didn't just decide who was right or wrong about the overlapping dates. They were actually revealing the unspoken social rules governing in-law relationships.
And the crowd overwhelmingly zeroed in on one specific person in this story.
Yes, they bypassed the mother-in-law and OP almost entirely.
And pointed straight at the husband.
The verdicts from the comment section are incredibly uniform on this. User AITAH_sir received nearly 4,000 upvotes for stating, quote, NTA, but your husband has to put his foot down and say a firm no.
And then there was user_strong_district_500-894
Yeah.
They added with over 650 upvotes, you have plans, you are not available, your husband needs to make it clear.
And then user writing _millimeter_romance just captured the general sentiment bluntly with 173 upvotes. Your husband needs to grow a pair and tell them the conversation is over.
It's fascinating. The internet is basically performing a structural analysis of leverage here.
Leverage, right.
The commenters recognize that the pressure and the multi-paragraph guilt trips are coming from the husband's side of the family.
Yeah.
Therefore, he is the one who holds the institutional power to enforce the boundary and protect OP from, the emotional labor of managing his mother's expectations.
Okay, but I want to challenge this unanimous verdict for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't it interesting that the internet immediately deflects the responsibility away from OP?
It's a pattern.
It is. It seems like Reddit enforces a very strict deal with your own bloodline policy.
Really do.
But is that actually fair to OP? I mean, OP is a grown adult sitting in this group chat, receiving several paragraphs of direct guilt from the mother-in-law. Why shouldn't OP just reply, "I'm not changing my trip, please stop asking," instead of sitting silently and waiting for the husband to act as a shield?
Well, OP absolutely has the agency to reply. But the deal with your own bloodline policy exists to mitigate the long-term fallout of these conflicts.
The fallout.
Yeah, it comes down to social capital and established communication architecture.
Okay, break that down.
The husband has a lifetime of context, unspoken language, and built-in forgiveness with his own mother.
Built-in forgiveness, right?
He can be blunt in a way that OP simply cannot.
Because if OP is blunt, it feeds directly into the trope of the quote-unquote difficult daughter-in-law.
Exactly that. If OP fights back, OP becomes the antagonist, keeping the grandchildren away.
Oh, yeah.
The conflict gets permanently assigned to OP's character. But if the husband fights back, he is just a son managing a logistical problem.
That's such a double standard.
It is. When you argue with someone else's parents, you are fighting a battle on their home turf where they wrote the rules of engagement.
So by staying silent, the husband keeps his own peace, but sacrifices hers.
Essentially, yeah.
He's effectively abandoning OP on the front lines to manage his mother's outsized expectations. And historically, the emotional labor of managing family calendars and extended relationships falls disproportionately on women.
Which likely explains the sheer volume of frustration directed at the husband in the comments.
Yeah, they were not holding back on him.
No, because his silence is an active choice. By not shutting down the group chat immediately, he is communicating to his mother that the boundary is still up for debate.
Wow. And if we accept that the husband needs to step in, that fundamentally changes the power dynamic moving forward.
Oh, it shifts everything.
The top replies in the thread focus heavily on who actually has choices in this scenario and who is actively trying to rewrite the rules after benefiting from the old ones.
Because the commenters immediately caught a glaring double standard in the mother-in-law's logic.
Yes. User affectionate-cat 867 minutes pointed this out and received nearly 150 upvotes simply by asking, quote, why don't they reschedule their trip?
That is the million-dollar question. It exposes the core entitlement of the demand.
Totally.
If the absolute priority is for the grandparents to see OP and the kids, and OP has a trip to an unmovable event that has been planned for months,
then the burden of rescheduling should logically fall on the group organizing the flexible family visit.
Exactly. But instead, the mother-in-law demands OP cancel a graduation.
It reveals who is expected to accommodate whom.
Yes, the family views OP's schedule as inherently less valuable than their own whims.
Which brings us this incredible quote from user rare_background 18999811. They quoted the security specialist Gavin DeBecker saying, quote, don't argue your decisions with people who get no vote.
People who get no vote. That is a profound framework for boundary setting.
It really is.
It underscores that OP and the husband are an independent unit. They made a decision about how to spend their vacation time. The mother-in-law does not hold a seat on the board of their marriage.
Right.
She does not get a vote on their calendar.
But how does someone actually give them a vote in practice?
You give them a vote the moment you start explaining yourself.
Oh.
By replying to those paragraphs and outlining all the reasons why the graduation can't be moved, OP is treating the situation as a negotiation.
And providing reasons just invites the other person to find workarounds for those reasons.
Exactly. The commenter is advising OP to stop negotiating. A boundary isn't a debate, it's an information update.
An information update, I love that. Which forces us to look at the hidden stakeholder here. What happens after this Reddit post?
Right, the real-world consequences.
The true tension in this story isn't about whether OP is declared not the asshole by thousands of strangers online.
No, it's about the future relationship.
Because OP might hold the line, ignore the guilt trip, and go to graduation. But even if OP wins this specific battle, the old family arrangement has been shattered.
The illusion of total compliance is gone.
Yeah.
The mother-in-law now realizes that she cannot simply summon them and expect an immediate adjustment. And that is an incredibly difficult transition for an enmeshed family to navigate.
Because the relationship has to move from being based on assumed expectation to being based on mutual negotiation.
And people deeply resent having to negotiate for things they used to get for free.
So true. If OP goes on this trip, the dynamic might permanently change. So the real underlying question is, who had the power to make this one-sided arrangement feel normal for so long?
And who is angry now that OP finally changed the rules?
Right. The anger from the mother-in-law likely isn't just about missing one weekend with her grandchildren.
Not at all. It is the sudden, jarring realization that she is losing control of the calendar and, by extension, the family orbit.
And for the husband, his discomfort stems from the fact that the easiest path, just keeping his mother happy, is suddenly costing him peace and respect within his own marriage.
He is being forced to choose a side.
Okay, to distill the key takeaways from the sources we've looked at today, we started with what appeared to be a straightforward logistical headache. 2 trips scheduled for the same week.
But it unraveled into a perfect microcosm of deep-seated family expectations.
Right, we examined the pro-OP boundary argument, breaking down how a neutral request transforms into coercion the moment a refusal is punished.
And we balance that with the skeptical need for context.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that we only see one side of a potentially complex history involving aging grandparents who genuinely want connection.
Exactly. And we broke down how an online jury of hundreds of commenters bypassed the dates entirely, identifying this as an issue of leverage and control disguised as care.
Ultimately pointing the finger straight at the husband to step up.
Right. Demanding that he utilize his social capital to manage his own family, rather than leaving OP to navigate the guilt alone. So think about the group chats active on your phone right now.
Oh boy.
You can probably identify the unspoken rules governing those relationships. If you suddenly change the rules of your availability tomorrow,
If you set a firm boundary that inconvenienced people who are totally used to your compliance,
who would be the first person to send you a multi-paragraph text? And the real unresolved tension is, when that notification inevitably lights up your screen, would you reply and negotiate, or would you let the old rules burn?